first timer into IELTS? Do you wish that someone would tell you what IELTS is all about? It would be of great help if you just knew how to prepare for the test. Well, then this is the right place for you, because in this video, I'm going to try and cover all about IELTS in just 10 minutes. So in the next 10 minutes, you will be at a better standing on what IELTS is. So let's get started. So IELTS is International English Language Testing System. It's an internationally accepted exam checking your proficiency in English. And this exam is taken by a lot of different aspirants. For instance, students looking for higher studies abroad, or a candidate planning to work in an English-speaking country. Or maybe, even if you're looking for migrating to places like Canada, Australia, New Zealand and so on, well, IELTS is a perfect test for you. There are also various other aspirants who would just want to take up the IELTS because you have a better prospect at improving your career. So, International English Language Testing System is for all of these. The IELTS is basically conducted by two organizations, the British Council and the IDP. In India, we have the IELTS delivered by IDP. So what is the IELTS test format? We have two possibilities. The first one is a computer delivered test, or the CDT. So you can take your IELTS on computers. And that means the order in which the exams will happen will be listening, reading, writing, and speaking will be done mostly on the same day using a video conferencing system. The second possibility is the paper-based test, and that means you will be writing or appearing for the test in this particular order. You'll begin with the writing, you'll move on to the listening, and then complete the test with the reading module. The speaking test of the paper-based IELTS mostly happens a few days ahead or a few days after the main test date. Now, other than the computer delivered and the IELTS paper-based test, we also have two other options which covers these. For instance, we have the academic IELTS and the general training IELTS. Now, the academic IELTS, like the name suggests, are for candidates aspiring for higher studies. And even nurses looking to migrate and start working in an English-speaking country would require the academic version of the IELTS. For the others looking for a job or for migration, it's mostly the general training IELTS that is accepted. So do not forget to check with your service provider as to what IELTS you will require for your need. So what is the IELTS test structure? Let's start with the listening module. The IELTS listening is a 40-minute test. Technically, the listening tape will last for 30 minutes. And after the 30 minutes, you are given 10 minutes to transfer all your answers from the question booklet onto an answer sheet. And you have to answer a total of 40 questions. Now, the IELTS reading is a 60 minutes task, which means a full 1 hour is dedicated for your IELTS reading. And again in the reading, you have to answer 40 questions. The IELTS writing is also a 1 hour long test wherein you have to answer 2 questions. You're given a task 1 and a task 2. Now the IELTS speaking is a 11 to 14 minute long test. It is by far the shortest exam as well. And though there aren't any exact number of questions, there are 3 sections or 3 parts in which the test happens. So this is an overall understanding into the IELTS test structure. Now let's look at each of these aspects in a bit more detail. Starting with the listening task. Now, we know that they take place for 30 minutes. What happens in these 30 minutes? The listening tape is divided into 4 sections known as section 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now, section 1 will cover the first 10 questions and will have real life conversation. For instance, it could be listening to a person calling up a hotel reception to book a room. Now, section 2 of listening is real life monologue, which means you will only listen to one person speaking. Section 3 is an academic conversation, and the next 10 questions fall in this particular section. You might listen to 2 students discussing a project, or it could be a trainer or a teacher talking to a student about an assignment. The 4th section is the academic monologue, where you listen to a lecture or a presentation on an academic context. So this is the overall format or structure of the IELTS listening. What are the different question types that you will come across or you need to be prepared on? Well, there are quite a few. You have matching questions, where you have to match bits of information that you listen to. You have multiple choice questions. You have to choose 2 or 3 or maybe one option from the list given. You have completion tasks, where you have to fill in gaps like the note completion, maybe a form completion. Information could be given in the form of a table. It could be completing a sentence or even summary. You will have to answer short answer questions. So answering in maybe 2 or 3 words. You might have to label maps. Now that's one of the most interesting questions in the IELTS listening. You might also have to label a flow chart or a diagram. So these are some of the questions, or I can say the most popular question types in your IELTS listening section. Moving on, let's have a look at IELTS reading. A 1-hour long test. The reading, again, based on which test that you book for. Is it the academic version of IELTS or the general training version of the IELTS? There would be slight differences, though both the tests will last for 1 hour each. Now, if it is the academic version, you will be reading 3 sections, which means 3 passages, and these passages will be taken from academic sources. So they are published, printed sources from across the world. The text will either be descriptive, factual, or analytical, and it may have graphs or diagrams in it. So all those who plan to take the academic IELTS, this is the kind of text that you will be reading to solve your 40 questions. Now, for all of those who have taken the general training version of the IELTS, you again have 3 sections and 40 questions. But in each of these sections, instead of long passage with 9 or 10 paragraphs, you will have 2 or 3 short texts. That is in section 1, and that would be based on everyday life. In section 2, you will have 2 texts focusing on work-related issue. You might be reading a job contract and filling in the answers. And in section 3, you have 1 complex text on general issues. What are the different question types that you have to be prepared on for your IELTS reading? Well, quite similar to the IELTS listening, you have the multiple choice questions. There is a different set of questions when compared to the listening in your reading, which is the true, false, not given question. You also have the yes, no, not given question type, where you have to match the opinion or information given in the text to that of the question and identify whether the statement is true, false, or not given. You have the matching headings, you have matching sentence endings, you have sentence completion question types, summary completion, short answer questions, and even labeling, diagrams, flowcharts, and so on. So these are the different types of questions that you should be familiar with to be able to perform really well in your IELTS reading. Moving on to the third type of module, which is your IELTS writing. Again, a 1 hour long test. Now, again, in this IELTS writing, there are variations for the academic version and the general training version of IELTS. For instance, if you are appearing the academic IELTS in your writing, you have to answer 2 tasks. The first task will be a report writing, which means you will have to write it in 150 words. And this report is based on a diagram that's given. It could be a graph, it could be a map, it could be a process. You have to organize, compare and present information in a very neatly structured report. Task 2, wherein you have to write around 250 words. It is an essay. You have to present a solution, justify or evaluate ideas based on the task given. Now, if it is the general training version of writing that you've opted, then in task 1, again, it is for 150 words, but instead of the report, like in the academic version, in the general training version, task 1 will be a letter writing. So, you have to write a letter based on the question. It could include your opinions, it could include your suggestions. Task 2 is again an essay in your general training writing, and you will require to maybe provide a solution, justify or give general ideas on the topic given to you. Now the last test of your IELTS is the speaking test, divided into 3 parts. This test lasts for 11 to 14 minutes. The first part of speaking is very personal. So you will have to first introduce yourself, tell a bit about your hometown, where you're from, whether you're studying or you're working, and following that, you will be asked a set of interview questions. And these interview questions will be about topics related to you. For instance, about your likes and dislikes. It could be about the habit of stamp collection. It could be about your school, about your college, about your friends, about reading habits, anything in general, but about yourself. In part 2 of speaking, which is a monologue, which means the examiner is not going to ask you any questions. Instead, you will be given a cue card. You have 1 minute to prepare on the card and 2 minutes to speak on the card. And this section lasts for around 3 to 4 minutes. Now the last part of your speaking is a two-way discussion, wherein 4 to 5 minutes long the section will last and you will be asked questions. Now, moving on from personal questions in part 1, by the time you reach part 3, it becomes more general, more abstract. For instance, it might be questions about the environment, about what your country is doing to protect the environment, or about what youth in general feels about protecting the environment. These are not about your personal choices, but about general aspects. So this is how the IELTS speaking test is structured. So I hope you've got a better understanding of what the IELTS test is all about. We've discussed the IELTS test providers, we've discussed the test format, we've discussed what each module of the test contains. And if you have a good understanding of this test, it becomes so much easier for you to be prepared for the IELTS. So I hope this video was quick, short and easy to understand. If you have any further questions and would like to know more about the IELTS, please feel free to add comments below this video. Thank you.
Medcity International Academy. Trusted hands forever.